I was 14 years old when I invented something new. So this idea came about when I was in my science class. I was using a litmus paper to dip into a solution and to categorize them into acidic or neutral or alkaline base solution. So then I was being a very curious person. Then I was wondering how can a litmus paper can actually determine and what are the elements that are causing the changes. So at the same time, I had an opportunity to join science exhibition competition when I was at 14. And I thought to myself, why not? I produce my own litmus paper. So when I was doing a bit of homework and all that, that's when I knew that there is this pigmentation called anthocyanin. That is the one that causing the changes when you dip the litmus paper into the solution. So I was looking into what other materials that actually have this anthocyanin pigmentation. So I was doing a bit of experiment using turmeric, red cabbage, hibiscus, apple, orange, you name it. And that's when I realized that red cabbage is one of the best indicator. And I'm able to produce my very own litmus paper using a red cabbage and also my own pH color chart. So that allowed me to win my science exhibition, and there was many more other competition that I participated and invented new. And there's also this one that is very close to my heart. During my second year of chemical engineering, I took up a subject called professional communication skill, PCS. So in this subject, you are evaluated based on your presentation skills. So it's a different genre like technical presentation, persuasive, business presentations, and things like that. So every time when you present, you can present anything you want, any ideas that you come up with, you can present, but you're only evaluated based on presentation skills. So by my lecturer then, she actually noticed, Risha, you actually have a lot of unique ideas whenever you are presenting. So why not you join this competition, which is hosted by my university back then. It's under American Society of Mechanical Engineering, SME, under oral gut technical presentation. So I thought, okay, why not? Let me give it a try. So I wanted to go more on the base of engineering because I was in my second year, right? So I was thinking, what kind of ideas that I actually can present during the competition. And that's when I was having a site visit to refineries, to oil and gas refineries, and pinpoint flash right in front of my eyes. We can see flaring. So I wanted to work something with zero carbon emission. So, and believe it or not, I'm still working revolving among the same title, zero carbon emission, till my PhD now, and also the product that I've developed that I've won my innovation award. It's revolving zero carbon emission. So when I was doing a bit of homework, like, what possibly can capture CO2 and then I can able to store it and then repurpose the CO2 for different purposes. And only then I realized microalgae able to capture CO2 40% more than any other green plants. So I was thinking to myself, let's work out something with microalgae, how to cultivate it, make sure that it's sustainable, and able to capture CO2, store it, and use it for different purposes, at least for power generation purposes. So it's like a closed loop system, and it's like a small mini plant. And I was able to come out and prove the concept through simulation and also some theoretical knowledge I've put in. I'm able to prove the concept. So I presented this idea and I was able to win as a silver medalist for one of the competition, and also fourth place. I represented Malaysia for the oral gut competition, and I won fourth place in Asia Pacific region. So after this ideas, right, this concept that I came out with, it actually attracts a lot of my other lecturers. They actually approach me, Visha, it's a very good idea and all that. But let's look into the next step to it, which is scaling and commercializing this idea. But when I was looking into it, that's yes, I'm able to prove my concept. But developing into it and scaling it up, there is a lot more work to it. That was really an eye-opening for me that I never thought of it. There's a lot more process. Even before you prove the concept, you got to do a lot of process before that if you want to really scale and commercialize your idea. So fast forward, when I went to working environment after graduating, I landed as an R&D engineer. I'm still one, by the way. So during my R&D engineer days, so my manager was he saw how passionate I am in my R&D and, how I was troubleshooting some problems in the production lines and everything. So he told me, Visha, I'm going to give you a different KPI during your probation period than other engineers. I'm not going to give you a typical one, but let's do something different and I'm going to support you with that. I said, okay, that's interesting. And he told me, file a patent in the 6 months probation period. I was thinking, wow, how am I going to do this? 6 months and filing a patent. It's none of inventions that I've done before my school days or my university days. I've not filed any patent. So I was thinking to myself, okay, let's do this. Being a fresh grad, degree holder, and I was all alone. I had no team. I thought, okay, let's do this. And guess what? I did. I did my breakthrough. And at least that's what I thought, breakthrough. But it wasn't the same for my CEO back then. He did not agree to file my patent, my new product that I've developed. And I was like, why? Why? I was so demotivated, of course. And then he told me, yes, it's a good product, but did you even study on the market trend? How it will be in years to come? Is the trending will be decline for this product or be increasing for this product? I mean, he being in an industry, in that particular industry for 30 years, so he can definitely tell. I had to do a bit of homework, but it's not the same for him, right? So he told me, no, you got to make sure both your technicalities and your marketing has to come together when you develop a product. It's for you to be sustainable in the market, which is fair enough, which was very new for me because, being in inventing in school days and university days, I've not focused on this commercializing. I've always been focusing on proving the concept. But here it's different. Here it's all about profitability, right? So then later on, I've moved on from manufacturing to my current industry, oil and gas. So that's where I actually learned a lot. So the nature of the business of my current company is they are consultant based, they are not R&D based. So when I moved in, I had an opportunity to lead my department. In initial days was only me and my boss, where we have to develop everything from scratch for our R&D department. So I was exposed and I had a very different perspective on the entire innovation management ecosystem. So this is when I have to learn a lot of things. I have to come up with a lot of framework strategy so that I have to make sure that I'm relevant in developing my products. Otherwise, I'm out of the market. So what I did is I read up a lot. I'm doing a lot of read-ups, books, blogs, articles, journals. What would be the best fit framework for me to do and start my new product development? So this is the first thing that I've done is identifying the type of innovation that I'm looking at. So there are a lot of areas of innovation based on Dublin method. So you got to focus on which is the area that you're looking at. It's whether it's services, channel, brand, your customer engagement, you name it. But in my case, it was new product development because I have to develop a product from the scratch. And for that, I came up with a framework. So this is my framework, my innovation strategy that I've used to develop my product. So if you see the product on the side, on the right-hand side, that's my jet pump, Sin jet pump, that I've developed within 8 months' time from scratch, and I've able to commercialize it in the market within 1.5 years. So I was working my strategy, my innovation strategy, the framework here, in parallel with developing my products so that I can fit into what went wrong and not right. So it's just more of trial and error. But later on, once I've firmed it up, I use it for my other products, which I'm able to develop within 6 to 8 months' time as well. So this method is actually called stage gate method. So stage gate method, if you see here, if you see that's 0.1 to 0.6, every method, every stage gate from 1 to 2, there is a stage gate. There is a gate that will stop you whether this particular idea it's worth going to the next stage. And you have to understand when you're doing a research, right? When you're developing a new product, especially, you have to ensure on the timeline of the product you're developing. So the timeline here you were talking about is any products, if you're inventing a product, a new invention, then it's going to take you a longer time. Let's talk about 5 to 10 years. There it can even be more. But if you're innovating a product, that existing product you're innovating, probably you just need 1 to 2 years time. But there are times if you don't have strategy, your framework in place, then it's going to take a longer time than expected. So it is best for us to determine the timeline so that when you develop your new product, you're still relevant in the market, because you always got to be very futuristic when you're developing your product, right? So in my case, when I was doing a discovery stage where all this idea generation, my pain point from clients and evaluating, I make sure there's a screening matrix at the end of each gate. So this screening matrix will actually give me a numerical data that will tell me, yes, this is worth going to the next stage. And what I've learned from a previous invention, from my school days and my university days and the first working experience, it's working things in parallel. My technical and my marketing has to work in parallel so that you know what you're doing, so that you're not wasting your time and your resources. So at this stage, what I've made is at 2 bullet points that you've seen at each stage, it's actually my technical and my marketing. So one is my product development, another thing is my marketing. And each of it has its own screening matrix. And once I go to the next stage where you determine your novelty, and once you think it's worthwhile, you move and you spend most of the time in your stage 3 and 4. Because this is the stage where you do a lot of alpha tests and the beta tests. So in my case, for my drug pump, I spend most of the time on my alpha test, proving my concept and determining a lot and collecting a lot of data. You know, you've heard of a lot of big data, right? So big data is very essential, especially when you're proving your concept. And when I was doing my particular drug pump, I was doing this in Jakarta, I was proving this concept. What I've done is that my experiment, it takes an hour's. Probably I was doing my experiment for 8 weeks. Every day, it takes me about at least 12 hours to do my experiment and have to run my simulation overnight. The next morning, I'll come and analyze my simulation, only because I need to have lots and lots of data to convince my clients. So when I do this, when I'm doing my alpha test, I've already started approaching my clients to do my technical presentation. So when I'm able to convince in that process, I can actually do it, test in the real environment, get my beta test done. So, you know, you have to make sure that it's not overlapping over here between your marketing and your technical team, so that you can be in parallel and you know what you're doing, so that you're able to commercialize in short period of time. So it didn't take up lots of time. So this is the entire strategy framework that I've came out with. And it's not only for Japan. Japan was my initial trial and error that I've used this framework. But my other products like my thermodynamic collision that have already been commercialized, and also what you see on the right-hand side is the offshore platform that I've installed my solar hybrid wind turbine. It's more on the renewable segment. I've installed this in the platform, and all this with the framework, it only took me 8 months' time to bring into the market. So for me, innovation framework, it has to have the flexibility, even though you have it in place, but it's best, it's always flexible, because the customer needs and the market needs changes according to time. So it's always best for you to innovate your innovation process, like what I've done, for different purposes based on your innovation that you have determined earlier stage. And that's the best way for you to commercialize your idea. Thank you.